Ron Nelson's with me, and he's got Steve Landon here. And the note that he sent me this morning talked about some legal ramifications with the flooding. Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. How are you?
It's just one of those crazy mornings.
It's been a crazy morning and a crazy week. And, who says our climate isn't changing? I mean, just Sioux Falls. I mean, in the last, 5 years, 6 years, we've had Operation Timber Strike. Is that Mayor Huther's term for it?
I think you're right, yes.
1 or 2 years on either side of that. I think a third or a half of the roofs in Sioux Falls were replaced with hail. And now we have flooding this year. So, for lots of people, I guess, lots of business industry, economic stimulus because contractors are busy. I heard Jerry Berg talking earlier about being not even taking calls. Hardly
you
anymore.
get to 400 calls. What can you do?
Yeah. And so, but it prompted some thoughts, pertaining to real estate, commercial real estate or whatever, which is what, the basis of this program is. And, what are the rights, what are the responsibilities owners have when situations like this come about? And now then thinking of it even in legal terms, what are the potential damages, and repercussions of that if some people, let's call them the upstream people or the uphill people, didn't necessarily act responsibly and potentially have caused harm to the downstream people. And so I just called up my friend Steve Landon and said, is this a thing? I mean, is there, because I know of some very specific situations, where this might come about and there might be some discussions with attorneys. And so, we got into a little bit of a lively discussion. I said, well, come on the radio with me and let's talk. So, Steve, please introduce yourself, but your law firm as well.
Sure. My name is Steve Landon. I'm with the law firm of Cadwell, Sanford, Dibert, and Gary here in Sioux Falls. And Ron, you're right. These are questions we get from time to time, and everybody around the office, as well as clients, are talking about where water's gone and the volume of it and the speed of it and things of that nature. And it does create legal rights, both for the and responsibilities, both for the we'll call it the upstream and the downstream.
All right, I live uphill, and I've got people below me, and I've got water that has come out of my sump pump. Am I in somehow involving my water on somebody else's property that would then want the services of Mr. Landon?
Well, as many things in the law, this is something where, while there are rules, the rules are left to what's called reasonableness. The South Dakota's, I know.
Lawyers and reasonableness?
I know. Well, how about
define that?
How about neighbors and reasonableness? No, our Supreme Court has called for the urban drainage of surface water, and that's what this is, surface water, the reasonable use rule. And under the reasonable use rule, you're privileged, Bill, to make use of your water and discharge it the way it's going to go normally, downhill.
Normal.
Not
just setting a row and moving it towards the neighbors that maybe I like or don't like.
Well, exactly. You don't get to pick and choose which neighbors you like and don't like. The water's going to go where the water's going to go. What no one can do is interfere with that in a harmful way. So, for example, you see people channeling, cutting through the ice to get it off of their land. If that increases the speed and the volume of water that goes where the water would go normally, and that speed and volume then causes harm that would not have been caused, then yes, you have some potential liability if that's where you're sending it. But of course, you have the flip side. How about the people that are damming up the water that would normally come down and say, no, we're not going to take that. We're going to put sandbags, if they were the ones who got to Menards first, or something else, and we're going to build a wall to keep water up on Bill's property, and then that backflows into your basement. Then they have now interfered with the normal drainage of water in a harmful way and potentially have liability to you.
How about cities that actually come to my driveway and make a little ice path? How about some of those that allow the city to dump in a ditch that is eventually going to come my direction? Any liability there?
Well, potentially, but again, you've got to balance what's reasonable and what's unreasonable. And the Supreme Court has given us a list of 7 factors. It's a longer list, and unfortunately, what that means is there may be legal proceedings because, reasonable is one of those things that the beauty may be in the eye of the beholder.
Or the counselor.
Or the counselor, or the judge. So we don't pretend that there's easy questions, but, the thing that our courts have recognized is we're all in this together, right? And so you've got people developing parcels of property that need to necessarily impact the parcels around it. You've got cities that are taking action with respect to being able to keep traffic flowing and keep water flowing, and there may well be some impact on the neighboring properties.
All right, Gavin's Point set a record overnight with the amount of flow of water. It hit 1,212 feet, surpasses the all-time record of 1,210, and they're speeding it up going downstream. Now, the water that we're sending from South Dakota winds up going to Iowa, Nebraska, Missouri. Do we have any liabilities there?
Well, potentially. You're going to have some government immunities as well because you've got public safety issues and you have public action that's going to be different than private action. Really what our courts have focused on, and as I recall, last time there was this issue, there was some litigation between the states as well. But then you've got the Army Corps of Engineers involved.
Oh, boy.
So you got a whole different level of government immunity.
They trump everybody, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's
Trump? Yeah.
No pun intended. Those issues, frankly, are a whole different level. Between individual property owners, you have pretty well-defined rights. And even though, again, it's gray because you're looking at reasonableness, once you get into the public interest and the public safety, those are just a whole nother level of issues.
So, Steve, some people are saying this would have been some good advice 3-4 days earlier, who saw this coming. But, now we're after the fact. So what might be some recommendations for people both upstream and downstream? The obvious things probably. Take pictures, get testimony from whatever, not testimony, right word, but, just opinions from contractors and things like that. But what would be your advice for both, up and downhill folks that might have some issues here legally?
Well, a couple things. Number one, take reasonable steps to protect what you can.
Yeah.
What the law doesn't allow you to do is sit back and just let damage happen. You've got to take reasonable steps to, what the law calls it, mitigate any damages.
Yeah.
To the extent you already have damages, though, Ron, you're exactly right. Everybody has a phone that takes video, takes pictures. Get video, get pictures. Because memories tend to fade, and then you don't have to worry.
Or grow or embellish.
Right. And then so then when the judge is looking at what weight to give the testimony, it's always nice to see the picture, right?
Yeah.
And the other is typically when you're looking at apportioning harm in these cases, there are engineers involved, there are contractors involved. Sometimes cases have hydrologists that talk about they measure the speed of the water, they measure volumes, they look at the slope of properties and have to give opinions on those things. So to the extent you're trying to preserve the record, if you then need to proceed for damages because you weren't able to get an injunction ahead of time, if you have to proceed for damages, you have to prove you've suffered damages. And what's difficult in these cases is, remember, if you're we'll call it a lower stream property owner, you were likely going to get water anyway. So did you drown in the inch in the bathtub or the foot in the bathtub? Was your basement going to be wet either way? It just got more than you would have gotten otherwise. That becomes an apportionment issue where you're going to be reliant upon engineers and contractors to tell you what your damage really is.
So from a practical standpoint, throwing some numbers in this, I think of a homeowner, that might just have $5,000 or $6,000 of damage, which is a lot of money, to a lot of people, and yet it's not amount that, first of all, you as a law firm are probably, at a level that is affordable or makes sense. No, the secondary frustration is most of this is not covered by insurance, right?
Right. Well, you remember there is small claims court that's available. To the extent you and your neighbor aren't able to reach agreement on something, and you've gone out and you've made the repairs. I always advise people, if you're going to say something is requiring repairs, then make. So
save your receipts then too.
Save the receipts.
Get somebody that's capable of doing it.
Absolutely. Maybe get a couple bids. That's never a bad idea to make sure it's not unreasonable.
Yeah.
Not Uncle Charlie.
Not Uncle Charlie, unless Uncle Charlie does this for a living, and he's good at it. And then you can go over to small claims court, and one of our small claims court judges hears both sides, and we'll decide whether there's liability based upon the exact same principles we're talking about today.
With this storm, do you expect to have a lot of claims?
I do. What we'll get is commercial claims. I mean, we'll get a claim by a tenant against a landlord. We'll get business claims resulting in harm to business properties, and then typically there will be some higher end residential claims that we'll likely get too. That will get reported to insurance, and then if it wasn't a sump pump failure or backup, that'll be denied likely, and so then there'll be a claim against wherever the water came from.
Steve Landon, Ron Nelson. Did we cover the topic?
Well, I hope so, Bill, and I just, again, thought this was probably a topical point, on real estate. Our program's a commercial real estate show. This is kind of a real estate generic.
It's a headline this morning.
Residential, commercial.
What can I do about
all
it?
of these things? But, we, after the cleanup and all that, now you start saying, geez, I've racked up a lot of bills here, and are these really all mine? So maybe we do need to call our friendly attorney.
Gentlemen, thanks. Appreciate the visit.